Thank you. Hello. Uh-oh. I gotta do one thing quick before I get started. Okay. Oh, that's much better. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm using a second camera, which is a device that was throwing sound at me, and now it is not. Hello, guys. Hi, Chris. Hi, Lori. Hi, Karen. Hi, Robin. Hi, Danielle. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited to see you all and get started on some stuff. Let's see, I can turn off my little banner now. If you are interested in checking something out, we have a Pinterest board all about creative mending or visible fixes, creative fixes and visible mending, however I put it. But we have a Pinterest board that you can scroll through that has, it's not all our samples, it's mostly other things pulled from Pinterest, but there's some really cool examples out there of things to see, and I'll show you some stuff today. And yeah, we're gonna get started. It's been a couple weeks since I did one of these, so I'm gonna try and remember where the camera is and where my other camera is and get it all right. So visible mending, creative fixes. I'm gonna start by sort of showing you some things that I've mended, talk a little bit about it, and then feel free to throw things in the comments that you have questions about. If you have something that you're working on and you want to consult, I'm happy to do that. You can put pictures up in the Facebook event, but tell me you did that. Hi, Holly. Tell me if you put a picture up and I'll look at it, figuring out the technology. But yeah, so visible mending is really fun. It's a way of saying, you know what, like my clothing is loved and I love it enough to fix it and wear it. And I don't think any of us are like so fancy that we have to pretend that everything is brand new. Plus, you know, that's a cultural thing that's not any good anyway. So creative fixes. Last year, I went to a really cool workshop run by the author of this book. Her name is Katrina Robidoux, and she has this whole book about mending. Let's see, there it goes. Mending as both like a craft, a meditation, and kind of a lifestyle. So it's a whole big thing. Hey, Debbie. Debbie, my dog's not here today. I'm at the store. She doesn't like it here, but maybe tomorrow when I take the day off, I'll post pictures of my dog. But yeah, so this book, Mending Matters, is a great one. It talks a lot about different ways to mend, different styles, different projects. There's a pretty good introduction of just like tools you're going to want, recommendations, but I will talk to you about that. And I'll show you, let's see, I have like 2 bags of mending stuff. When I went to that workshop, I had some jeans with a big hole in the knee, and I ended up doing this visible mend. So I've got it there. Let me see if I can get that a little bit closer to the camera. Yeah, so just the knees are sort of at a big hole right across the middle, and I could have just stitched that up and left it that way, but you know, I was in a class, it was go big, so I put a big patch in there, and what I'll turn this inside out so you can see, but what I've done is just long straight running stitches, and those go the length of the patch, so they are holding the patch on that's underneath, and also being sort of decorative. These jeans had a little bit of stretch, so when I mended them, Like they're already stretched out for my body, which is just what's going to happen to your clothes. But you know what? If it's going to be visible, then it shouldn't be perfect anyway. And I'll flip these inside out to show you what the patch looks like on the inside. Yeah, so it is denim. I did choose fabric that was pretty much the same weight and type as the fabric of my pants. That's a good recommendation. Just when you're going to do a patch, use something that is very similar in feel and weight to what you're patching. For a couple of reasons. One, like if you use something really bulky, but a lightweight fabric, it's going to show up. Another reason is that when you wash things, if you have a like fabric and a like patch, any sort of shrinkage that happens is going to be a little more equal than, like, say if I'd done a totally synthetic, like a polyester type patch on cotton. When I wash things, one of them is going to shrink a little bit more than the other, and that's going to cause a little bit of difference. So that's rule number one, or lesson number one. Suggestion number one. There's no rules. You just fix it however you want to. But suggestion number one is when you're choosing fabric to patch and also thread to stitch with, try and get something that is pretty close to the fiber content of your garment. So like these pants are definitely like part spandex, they stretch, but they're probably 97% cotton. So I used a cotton patch and cotton thread. And these have lasted a year or so. You can see that the patch on the inside is fraying a little bit because the edges aren't finished, but not too much really. It's not so bad. I don't think the patch is going to give away before any other part of the pants do. And I'll bring this kind of up close. So that's the inside. And if you just joined us, I'll show you the outside. Is there. You can kind of see right here, this line of stitching is where there's a big gaping hole, and the rest of it is just sort of a bigger patch behind it. And one reason to do a bigger patch is that even though the hole was right there, I could tell just by look and feel that the fabric above and below the hole was also pretty thin, pretty worn. So that patch is sort of basically helping that to not tear anymore. And that is a tip that I don't follow enough myself, but a really good tip is patch it before it rips. I think we probably are all aware of like that thing when like maybe the inside leg of your pants or a part in the butt, whatever part your body rubs the most, gets really thin and you can feel it and you know it's going to go. If you can pull it together to patch it before it actually rips, it's going to be a lot easier. I will just confess with these pants, they already had holes on the inside leg. I didn't patch them at my class, and they have just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So now these are more like leggings. I wear them with like tunics and stuff because they've just got big old holes in the butt. At this point, like those holes got big. They started as rips. I could have repaired rips. Once they're holes this big, it's going to take a big patch behind it to hold this together. And since that is right in the middle of everything, I feel like a patch that bulky would be uncomfortable. I may try something with these. This side is not as bad. This side is definitely like in repairable shape. I could put a patch behind there and stitch it. This side has gone pretty far, unfortunately. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You could always try. And, you know, worst case scenario, just wear it with a long t-shirt or make it into really short cutoffs. I don't know. I do have another pair of jeans here that I'm trying to catch before the breaking point, or almost. So this pair of jeans, very similar, has like this little tiny hole sort of right in the butt, but it is not gotten too gaping yet. So I think that one is fixable. So I'm going to try and tackle that today. So if you've got jeans that you're repairing today, we'll do some of that. I'm going to show you some more things that I have fixed, if I can find all the things I've fixed. No, I think I mostly have samples of things I need to fix. Not too many things that I have fixed. I can show you something that I did. This is a tunic that I wore a whole lot, and then I got bored with it, and I decided to just add some stitching. It wasn't ripped, but I just here, I'll hold it up this way. I just trying not to hit my cameras, but it's not successful. I just added some stitching here. This one had been totally plain, and I added some stitching on the sleeves and on the sort of neck placket, just decorative. I'm not certain how I feel about it. It's wrinkly because it's been back in the mending basket. I thought I would take these out and do something different. I might add some color or something. But that is just to say that, like, You don't have to have holes to repair. You can just go in with thread and patches and whatever you want and give something a new look. What's nice about this fabric is it's pretty sturdy. So if I take these stitches out, I'm not going to have a big mess of holes or anything that won't show up. Yeah, and this is just done with cotton, again, cotton thread. I will go through some of the materials. And let me fix my camera back to where I want it to be. That's pretty good. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry, figuring out like where to put things is one of the biggest challenges here. Okay, so I got a workspace. All right, so when you're mending, you're going to want some scraps of fabric. You're going to want some needles, some thread, some scissors, mostly things that are pretty easy to find around. If you, like me, have a bin of things to repair, just dig to the bottom. Whatever's on the very bottom, you're probably never going to fix it. So you can just cut that up for scraps. Or you might already have scraps. So I've got some denim scraps here, a couple of different weights and shades. Have this fun one if you want to do a visible patch. This one has got like little hearts and stripes and stuff. And it's a pretty sturdy fabric. It's a non-stretch woven cotton. I've also got cotton muslin. This is sort of a canvas weight cotton muslin. It's a utility weight. Cotton muslin is a great fabric. It's easy to find. This is unbleached, so it's just like a little colored. I don't know why one of my cameras is frozen, not the other. So that's a really good thing to have around. And then I also have some like pretty heavyweight canvas here. I would probably use this for an outside patch too. That's one thing, is if you've got a really heavy fabric for your patch, you might not want it on the inside of your clothes. It might be better on the outside, and then just do lots of stitching. You know, just think about like what's going to touch your body, and what's going to be okay with you and what's going to be annoying. All right, I'm going to turn off my little Pinterest banner. No, I'll leave it there. If you see anything on Pinterest you're interested in talking about, I'm happy to talk about that with you. All right, so fabric scraps, you need to have those. It's also good to have some marking tools. A regular pencil is just fine. It'll show up on most clothing. It'll wash out of everything. If you're doing something dark, then you might want a chalk. Let me see, I had some chalk somewhere. So you could use regular like sidewalk chalk, but it'll brush off pretty quickly. So another option is this stuff called Tailors Chalk. It looks like this. We have some too that's like a triangle shape. Let me see if I can put that on something dark so you can actually see it. But it's another type of chalk. It's just a little waxier than what your regular like sidewalk chalk or chalkboard chalk is. But I'll show you. It makes a pretty, and this is another one. They'll break a bunch, but that's okay. Like even if it's broken, you still use it. But this makes a pretty good visible line, and it will wash out later. So when I did these jeans, I went through and I actually marked most of my lines just so that while I was stitching, I didn't have to think about it too hard. That's the meditative part. You do a little preparation and then you can like think less hard about it later. Yeah, so Tailors Chalk is great. Like I said, you can also use regular chalk. Pencils, there's a chalk pencil. We have these at Craft Habit. This one is two-sided. It's got red and blue. I also have two-sided that are black and white. I think I've got blue and white and red and white. So many different variations. If you have a bunch, it's nice because then they'll show up in one thing or another. Like this red will show up. I can see this. You probably can't see this, but it shows up a little bit on a dark fabric, but then maybe like the blue. Yeah, the blue shows up a little bit better on medium fabric. But yeah, just to have, you want something high contrast to your fabric so you can see it. You can also use pens and markers, and you're going to stitch over it. And like I said, we're not going for perfection. We're going for utility and like flair. Yeah, so marking tools here. You're also going to need some needles. Pretty hard to stitch anything without needles, but there's so many types. I've got embroidery needles. I've got sashiko needles. I'll talk about sashiko in a moment. And also, so those are really good. These are both sharp needles. So when you are stitching repairs in a woven fabric, so a fabric that well, a woven fabric that doesn't have like visible spaces between the fibers. Sharp needles are good because you're gonna have to sort of break through the fabric. And sharp needles are what you're used to for hand stitching if you've hand stitched. The other options are tapestry needles. Tapestry needles are blunt tipped, and so they are really good for sort of going between fibers. I'll show you, and so tapestry needles, and then you can also do plastic yarn needles. These are good. So if you are repairing like a sweater or something, you don't want to put more holes in it. You actually want to try and weave between the fibers to pull things together. And I'm going to show you that on sort of a large scale. It's pretty hard to show on a video up small, but I'll show you a large scale. Let me grab a sweater that I fixed. Yeah, okay. So I had this big, lovely, warm, chunky found sweater that I got, I don't know, clothing swap, I think. But when I got it, oh, this was such a good repair. I can't even find it. But basically, the back of one of the arms had come unstitched where the sleeve met the body of the shirt. And I will admit, I just wore it like that for a while. It's a pretty loose knit, so I was always wearing a shirt under it anyway. But eventually, I found some yarn that was the same color as this. And since the hole was just along the seam, I was lucky it wasn't actually any of the knit come unravel. It was just where it had originally been stitched together had come undone. So let me see if this is even visible at all. The contrast is so low, but along here, there's a slightly darker yarn. If you can't see it, just believe me, it's there. And so for that, I used a plastic yarn needle like this. Plastic needle, not a sharp tip, and I just wove my thread in between and around. And that's pretty easy to do on a big loose knit weave like this. When you have something else that's a knit. So a knit is something that's mostly stretchy. So like a sweater, a t-shirt, this cardigan, like a lot of our wovens have some stretch in them. Like your jeans are going to probably have some stretch in them, but they're still a woven fabric if they're mostly not stretchy. But but so this sweater is also a knit, but it's a much finer knit. You really can't see those holes in there. So you could use a very small tapestry needle if you had a hole in this. I mean, if you need to, if you only have sharp needles, you can do that. It's not going to be terrible, but if you can find a small enough needle that, like, if you stretch this fabric way out, you can kind of see the holes in it. If you can get between them instead of breaking fibers as you go, that's going to also oh, good. I'm glad you could see that. Yay. From here, the contrast of the video is like very low. Like everything is very bright. So I'm glad you could see that. Cool. Thank you, Danielle, for letting me know that you could see my close-up. But yeah, so I'll try this again since I know it looks better to you than to me. As you stretch your knit out, you can kind of almost start to see spaces between it. So if you can find a small enough needle that'll slip between them, that's good. And this sweater I pulled out, it doesn't have any holes in it, but it does have a bunch of bleach stains on it because of all the bleaching of things we've been doing lately here at the store. And I thought about either like stitching over them, but I think later I'm just going to go and like throw some more bleach on it and just make it a whole thing. Bleach splatters, bleach dyes, that can be cool. So I might do that with this one. But definitely water down. If you're going to bleach something, water it way down because bleach is a chemical that is eating through your clothes. You just want to eat a little tiny bit. You don't want to eat it a whole lot. So I think when I got this, I was probably using like a bleach spray that was maybe a quart of water to a teaspoon of bleach, maybe a tablespoon. It might have been a tablespoon. But basically like this much bleach to this much water, and that was still plenty to give me some stains. So if you want to do that, also like look it up. There are so many good tutorials online about how to like bleach dye your clothes and stuff. But yeah, water down is very necessary. So that might be a later project, but I did want to show you another kind of knit. I'm gonna put that away in my craft habit bag. Put that one away. So I talked about needles. Okay, I keep rolling into my camera stand. So yes, needles, marking tools, Scissors, you need good scissors. You definitely want to have a pair of scissors in your house that you use just for fabric and fibers. So that can be cutting fabric, cutting threads, cutting felt. Just basically don't use them for paper or metal or anything that isn't a fiber type of thing, and then they'll stay good for you forever. I have my big fabric scissors here, and I have these little snips that are some of my favorites. These are little Fiskars snips. We call them pom-pom scissors because we use them to make pom-poms, but they're in every room in the store, every room in my house. They're very, very good scissors. Very, very sharp on the tip. So if kids are using them, be very supervisory of that. But that's nice because then if you need to snip something really, really close to your fabric, you can do that without worrying about cutting your actual fabric. You can get right in there. So then the last thing we're going to need is thread. And you can use kind of anything. Like I said before, you want to match as closely as you can the fibers that you're repairing with the fiber of your garment. So if you've got a pair of jeans that are cotton, even if they're cotton spandex, or most jeans these days have some sort of blend in them, but you want to have a cotton patch or a cotton spandex patch, and then if you can do a cotton thread, that's great. Polyester is okay too, polyester thread. I was saying before that like a polyester patch will shrink more than cotton fabric will, but polyester thread going through wouldn't be too bad. So if that's what you got, that's what you can use. But we like to use cotton thread, and we have here at the store, I'm looking for a sample, it's not behind me. So we carry a sewing thread called from Sulky, and it's 100% cotton sewing thread, so that's good. And we also carry sashiko thread. So when you see these types of repairs with these long, straight, repetitive stitches, that's sashiko. Or, okay, that's a version of sashiko. Sashiko is a type of embroidery. There are different names when you use it for mending, but for the most part, we're going to go with that. And I apologize for not being completely accurate on that. But basically it means long, straight stitches. And the thread for it is 100% cotton. And we have this here. I'm going to show you I did a little shopping before. So we've got a bunch of different colors, a bunch of rainbow colors, so you could match many things that you're doing. And then the kind of classics are going to be white, off-white, and navy. We have black also. But so we've got off-white, we've got white. There's the difference there. And then we also have white in this really big pack. So if you have a lot of repairs to do and you want them all to show up, this is great. And then there's some navy here. There's a few other shades of blue too. So if you've got different shades of blue jeans, we've got those, and we've got a gray, which is a pretty nice sort of, that works really well. It's kind of like a stone washed. If I'd wanted on these pants to do a more blended in, I probably would have done the gray because it's about the same color as like where the most faded denim is. So you can usually find either a match or a contrast, whichever you want to go with. I'm going to start today with a kind of boring repair, but it's the one that's actually going to like let me wear these pants again. So I'm going to repair this sad little hole in the butt of these jeans. And I've got some dark denim that kind of matches. And I've got some dark navy sashiko thread. I'm going to pull out the white, though, to show you. I think it's going to show up better for a little demo. So this is different from embroidery floss. If you embroider, you can also use embroidery floss. I like the sashiko for mending because it's a little sturdier. So most embroidery floss, like the sort of traditional, what you're going to pick up anywhere, is 6 strands. And so it's meant to be separated. So it's 6 strands that are together but not really twisted up. And it's made that way so that you can change the thickness. So you can use 1 strand, 2 strands, 3 strands, all the way to 6. So it's a divisible floss. Sashiko is not. It's made to be a single strand, but it's pretty thick. This single strand of sashiko is almost as thick as 6 strands of embroidery floss. Maybe it's about 4 strands. But so it's not really meant to be separated. You can, like, it'll fray. You'll see that it is made of separate fibers, but those separate fibers aren't strong enough to use on their own. Whereas embroidery floss, separate fibers are strong. But this, like, all together is a really good strong floss. Doesn't stretch much, which is good. You don't want it to stretch too much when you're stitching. So yeah, so that is what the Sashiko thread looks like. That's how it's different from embroidery floss. And then of course, sewing thread. Sewing thread is really thin and fine. I think better used for when you want to do more of a hidden and invisible fix, and also maybe something that isn't going to get a lot of wear and tear. So if you get, like, you know, a little rip on a blouse because you, I don't know, carried too many things in from the car, but it's not a place where you actually get a lot of wear and tear, you can fix it with sewing thread. Will be a little bit more delicate fix. So that's one thing too that you have to figure out when you're mending things is where is this on my body and what do I want to show up there? So it can be exciting to go in and do a really fun fix, but then like you put it on, you're like, oh, that weird fix is like in the middle of my lower back. And yeah. Okay, a question from Danielle. I'm going to put this on the board. So the question is, are Sashiko threads a similar thickness to embroidery thread if we have that? Regular sewing thread. Oh, I think I just talked about that. But yeah, so Sashiko is similar in thickness to embroidery thread, definitely much thicker than regular sewing thread. But sewing threads, you could always use more than one strand. Sewing thread is going to be a lot more slippery. So it's going to be harder to work with as multiple strands, whereas Sashiko is it's sort of all one strand. But you can try whatever. I mean, you could use, if you got baker's twine, that's usually cotton, you can stitch with that too. But that's a good question. And like I said, sort of if you want it to be highly visible and your patch is in some place that's going to get a lot of wear and tear, then I do recommend a heavier, sturdier thread. If it's more of just like a fix somewhere where you're not going to get much more pulling and pushing, then sewing thread is good. It'll be a more delicate fix. All right. Hey, Chris. All right. Chris has a question about T-shirts. So we'll do a little bit different stuff for T-shirts than for jeans, mainly because jeans are going to be a heavier fabric. And so what you want to do with a T-shirt is if you can find a patch, like some stretchy fabric that's similar to your T-shirt to use as a patch, that's really good. And then I would use sewing thread might be really good for a T-shirt fix because it's going to not be as heavy. Like Sashiko is definitely pretty heavy, so you want to use it on heavier things and higher wear places. So knees, elbows, pockets and stuff. If your T-shirts have little holes that come like from laundering, a lot of times you get little holes from laundering and they're sort of like all over the place. Sewing thread's good for that. If it's a rip, like if it's a rip and you just need to sew it up together, sewing thread's good for that too. You might not need a patch behind a T-shirt hole unless the hole is actually big. So like you can have a rip where, like if you have a rip where you can kind of see they're just like got a slice in the fabric and the fabric's still intact, then that's just a fix, just to like sew it together. But if you have a hole that's gotten bigger, like maybe the fabric's worn away, then you'd want a patch. So basically, if your garment has lost some fabric, you need to replace it. If it's only gotten a rip in it, little random holes, yeah, Chris, yep. So Chris is saying it's little random holes. I totally have gotten those in so many T-shirts. It's just like a matter of washing. So with that, it depends on how fun you want it to be. You could do lots of little patches, either outside or inside. You could try some different fabrics. If you go to that Pinterest link, I don't actually know if you can click this link down here. I will put it in the comments here. Let me see. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I just put that Pinterest link in the comment. But if you want to look at that, you can see people have mended things and turned the holes into little faces. There's lots of fun stuff you can do. It just sort of just depends on where you want to wear it later and how creative you're feeling. Victoria has a question about, could we use this for mending pillows? Yeah, you could definitely do it for mending pillows. Yep. Any kind of fabric thing you want to mend, you can do with this method and have it visible. But But again, it sort of depends on, is it a mend like the stitching is coming out and so the pillow's falling apart, or and sort of a utilitarian mend to kind of put things back together, or is it like this fabric pillowcase got a hole in it and I want to fix it decoratively? So those are things to think about too. Right now, today, I'm going to concentrate on holes in fabric rather than seams. So that's more of a repair, not to get like semantic, but if you've got someone with a hole in the seam where basically like, maybe your shirt's coming apart on the side, you do need to fix that in a specific way so that it won't keep coming unraveled. That's more of like a clothing repair or alteration. And maybe I can talk about that at another date. But if you've got something where like, your pocket's coming off, your zipper's coming out because the stitching's coming out, that's gonna be a little bit different than what we're doing today. Just FYI to everybody. All right, how do I make this knot up here? Okay, all right, I'm gonna go turn that off. So I put in the comments, oh yes, good. Yeah, the link is fun. There's a lot of, I'm gonna click over really quick. One of the first things you see if you look at that link is like little embroidered monster faces that have been made up around holes and things. If you're looking to repair t-shirts, look at some of the sweater repairs on this page, because a sweater repair and a t-shirt repair can be pretty similar. There's some really cute stuff on here. So definitely click over that link at some point for some inspiration and stuff. Okay, I've been talking a lot. Thank you for all the questions. I love the interaction. I love to know like what you guys want to know. And let me go ahead and get into this repair. I'll do this one practical repair, and then I'll show you a few other things. Oh, you know what? I'm scattered, but let me show you really quick what I mean about seams, about repairs and seams. All these things are so wrinkly because they've been like down in the bottom of my repair basket forever. So I have this loose jacket type thing that I love very much. And if you can see here, so this side does not need repair. This is just the side seam where the front panel and the back panel, oh, actually it does need a repair. I was wrong. There's my fingers coming through. So this is one where I've got a rip here in the fabric, but I've also got on the other side of the jacket, okay, where'd you go? Oh yeah, there it is, where my hand's going through. There's a big rip all the way down the seam. So if you can see this, it should be sewn together there. So this one, when I repair this, I'm just going to sew this with a sewing machine because I want a long, straight, even seam. I don't want this to be visible. This is actually part of the construction of the garment, so I don't want to change the shape or texture of that at all. And I will say that this happened because this garment, which is a store-bought, not a me-made thing, just store-bought thing, this lovely fabric is not very good quality fabric. And what has happened is that the fabric wore away where it was stitched. That's the same thing that happened on that sleeve that I was showing you. And it's a shame because I really love this fabric, but it's just like so lightweight. And it almost feels like the way they constructed it was like they constructed it too much. It wasn't put together very delicately. And since it's kind of a delicate fabric, that's why it's falling apart. Yeah, it's falling apart like wherever it meets the seams. So that's too bad, but I'll do some fixes on it and see what I can do. That is always one of the downfalls of buying mass market clothing. I mean, which is, I will admit, like 98% of my wardrobe too. But then when things like that happen, it inspires me to try and like get back to sewing my own clothes, or at least like shopping local with other people who can sew clothes. All right, so I'm going to lay out these pants. You can see this sad little hole in the bum, and I'm going to cut a patch so I can see that, and let's put something right under here. Okay. So I can see that my hole is here. I can also tell though that the fabric going all the way this way and down here is super loose. Like it just happened to rip here, but any of this part could rip as well. So I'm going to make a much larger patch than the size of the hole, because I want to, since I'm going to go in here and do this work to try and increase the longevity of these pants, I'm going to also realize that like, just because that's the hole that's there doesn't mean there's not going to be other holes frequently and soon. So I think I'm looking at sort of like a triangle-y shaped patch, and it is right here near the leg seam, so I'll probably end up anchoring it there. But let's see. Maybe I can use one of my chalks. Yep, so if that's my leg seam, I'm going to kind of measure there, and I can just feel here where this seam is. So I'm going to make a little line, and then I've got this line that I drew here earlier. Let's see, that's too far. So I'm just sort of checking. I'm winging it, which is totally fine. Just going to make a weird shaped patch that's big enough to cover up all the places that either have holes now or are going to be trouble spots later. So one more thing that it's nice to have around when you're going to do repair is have some pins, either some straight pins or safety pins, just to hold your stuff together. Okay, yeah, so that's there. So I'm showing you on top about the size I've made. Let's see, actually I'm going to pull this up and trim this a little bit here. There we go. And I'm going to put this on the inside. Yeah, so I'm just going to slip it in there. And whether you work from the outside or the inside is up to you. I think when you're doing the actual stitching, if you want it to show, well, when you're doing actual stitching, you should be looking at the outside no matter what, because if you want it to show, you can see what you're doing. And if you don't want it to show, then if you're looking at the outside, you can see how visible it really is. So I've got my patch in there. I'm going to put some pins in. I'm just sort of placing it by feel. Since I cut it such a specific shape, it's going to fit there pretty nicely. Another thing you can do, if you don't want to get fussy with the shape in the first place, is you can just cut a really big patch, put it back here, stitch it down, and then after you're done stitching, you could turn your garment inside out again, and any parts of the patch that aren't stitched down, you could just trim those. So you don't have to worry about being too precise when you start, unless you're going to be super, super, vigilant about preserving your fabric, which we should be. But, you know, at this point in our modern society, every little scrap isn't, I shouldn't say isn't too important. It's okay. You can be kind of messy. That's what I'm trying to say. It's okay to be messy. All right. So I've got my patch pinned on under there. And then one thing else that I'm going to do before I start stitching, I'm going to put something in here so that I'm separating the two layers of my pants so that I do not accidentally stitch all the way through the leg and end up with not a pair of pants anymore. And I'm going to just use this book, Mending Matters. I'm going to stick it right in there. And that way I know I'm not going to stitch through too many things. And I do want to sort of like this. Actually, this book is great because I'm going to use it to sort of, this book is great. It's also useful. Yeah. Oh, so Chris was noting that I'm not sewing the hole first. That is true. In this case, I'm not sewing the hole closed first. I could, because this one hasn't stretched too much. If it was a brand new hole, like if it had just split and I'd noticed it, I probably would sew it closed first. But it's kind of an older hole. I've been wearing them for a while with the hole in it. And so what's happened is that the edges of this hole are very worn. So if I stitch those closed, they wouldn't hold. So that's part of what the patch is doing, is I'm saying I'm making my patch big enough that it reaches to the edges of the fabric where the fabric is less worn. Because you got to anchor it to something that's strong enough to hold on to it. If I just stitched right there, I'd wear these pants one time, sit down, and it would pop again. So that is one of the reasons I haven't stitched that together. But good observation, Chris. Thank you for sharing that. Gives me more things to talk about. Yeah, and so I was going to start this with my dark blue Sashiko. This particular patch is going to land in a place in my body that isn't that visible most of the time, but I'm still going to use this thread that blends in. Let's see where it starts. All right, and when you are hand stitching, do not pull as much thread as you think the whole job is going to take. That's going to get you in trouble. Only pull as much thread. I usually sort of measure between my finger and my elbow. For me, that's about 18 inches-ish. When you work with longer thread than that, you just run the risk of it tangling while you're mid-stitch. And you don't want that because you have to undo things and go back. So I'm also going to pop open this packet of Sashiko needles. And Sashiko needles, what's different about them, what makes them different from embroidery needles, from traditional or from Western embroidery needles, they're very long, or well, they're pretty long, and they have a big eye. The reason for that is when you do Sashiko embroidery, what you are doing is laying a whole lot of straight stitches. And if your needle's long, you can actually sort of weave it in and out of the fabric and do like 5 or 6 stitches before you even pull it all the way through. It's okay to lick your thread. Just don't lick somebody else's thread. So I'm going to thread this. The nice thing is that Sashiko needles also have a pretty big eye. So I'm going to thread. I like to leave a short tail and a long tail. And on this one, since I'm not doing really visible stitching, I'm not going to mark any lines, but I'll show you what I would do if I was. So if this was a knee or an elbow patch that I wanted to show up, I might go in and like mark my lines where I'm going to stitch just so I know I can keep it kind of even. But this one is not. This one is just a utilitarian stitch. I'm going to start stitching it in just a second. My phone keeps buzzing and I want to make sure that there's not an actual emergency happening. I'll be right back. No emergency. I just needed to turn off my text notifications. And I know my mom is watching, so the only person who needs to get in touch with me is her. So hi. All right, so I'm just going to start stitching, and I'm going to try and keep an eye on comments. If you guys have other particular mends that you are interested in, pop it up there. Let me know. I'm going to start. It doesn't really matter where you start. I'm going to start on one side and work to the other side. I think I'm going to start on sort of the outside, the part that's more towards like the hip than the crotch, just because this is the part that's going to be easiest. It's most flat. It's the least worn of the fabric. And actually, I'm gonna do something weird. I mentioned earlier that when when you are choosing what to use for your patch, think about what you want next to your skin. And sorry, people are commenting on my emergency. Thank you for all your concern. I have turned the phone off. If you have an emergency, call me at the store. Anyway, so back to like what's inside your clothes. So I've tied a knot in the end of this embroidery floss. I don't want a knot hanging out on the inside of the leg of my jeans. So I'm going to use this hole. I'm going to go in through the hole. So I'm in between the jeans fabric and the patch here. And I'm just going to come, so in between those, I'm going to come out the jeans fabric. And that way, that little knot that I tied is sandwiched between the jeans that I'm repairing and the patch there. So that way it's not going to like rub against my leg and make me irritated. So I'm definitely that person who like, I noticed every little fuzz ball on fabric and I have to pull it off, which is part of why I have to repair my clothes. But that's going to be my little trick that I just thought of right now. I'm sure people have thought of it millions of times. But that way I've got my thread anchored. Oh, I don't. So good thing I did that pull. I'm going to give myself a heftier knot, which I'm just tying another knot over the one I had there. And let's try again. And also I'm going to move up. I'm going to move farther out to the edge, because the farther I get from this hole, the sturdier my fabric is. This hole is sort of like the hot spot epicenter of where the fabric rubs and gets thin. So the farther I am for there we go. I'm not pulling too hard, but I'm pulling hard enough that's not going to pop through. All right. And since I got my book under here, I don't need to put my hand under. I've got sort of a surface that I can feel when I've got through 2 layers. So when I feel the tip of that needle hit something solid, I know I've gotten through both of my layers of fabric. And I'm going to start, well, that was a really big stitch. And I'm going to see if I can get this any closer to what I'm doing. That's a little bit better. So I made a pretty big stitch. I'm going to try and make these smaller, and I'll show you some of like the sashiko method, where basically I'm going to put the needle through there. It's going to come out the fabric, and then before, so normally when I'm stitching, I sort of put it through the fabric, pull all the way through, start a new stitch. But with sashiko, you are loading up a lot of stitches on your needle before pulling it all the way through. And look, I am not very good at this. All of my stitches are going to end up being different lengths and sizes from each other. But that's the thing, is like, that's okay. You make it, it's yours. It is what it is. And if I wanted to get really good at sashiko, I would sit around and practice a bunch. But you know what? I got a lot of crafts to learn, so I'm going to do it enough as it is. So I'm going to bring this up again. So stitch here, here, here. So those 2 were all on my needle at the same time. Since I'm not great at that, I'm probably going to go back to just doing individual stitches. I have a little bit more control that way over how big they are and how far apart they are. I'm going to go down until I feel like I've gotten to the edge of my patch. Yeah, I'm going to do one more stitch. And then all I'm going to do is jump over a little bit and come back the other way. I'm actually going to do that underneath. So I'm going to, where I just stitched, I'm going to do a small stitch down and come over a little bit. You know what? I am going to go ahead and sketch these lines on here more so that you can see what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do, and let's see, if I was being very fancy, I would use a ruler. Where's my small ruler? Well, I've got a big ruler. So I can lay this down, and I'm measuring sort of like a 1/4 inch and just marking straight lines. It is a little bit harder to mark lines on worn fabric, and I wonder if my red would show up better on this. That's why it's nice to have a bunch of different marking tools. You can see what's going to work. Actually, yeah, the red's going to show up a little bit better because where this fabric is worn, it's lighter color, so that white pencil doesn't show up quite as well. And I won't stitch this whole thing live on camera. I think that'll be boring. Plus, oh, we're at 10 minutes. So, I mean, I'll go longer, but I don't know how much longer you want to watch. But so then what's going to happen, and I'll lift this up again so you can kind of see my red lines here, 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 and they would carry all the way across. And I'm just going to keep doing straight lines of stitching, just like that. So it'll be really similar to this repair. I'm going to make my stitches smaller down here, though, on this butt repair than they got on this knee repair. Just, I think it'll be sturdier if I do that, and also less bulky back there. Yeah, so that's that repair. And since I used a denim patch and I sort of know how much denim frays, I'm not worried about that patch falling apart. So Danielle, you're working on something. Yep. So Danielle has a question about sizes of needle. And that is a really good thing to bring up, because the size of your needle is important, and it's going to follow from the size of your fabric. So if you're using a Sashiko needle and you're having a hard time go through, feel free to switch to an embroidery needle. I'm going to say the whole word. Switch to an embroidery needle of a smaller gauge, because if you're having trouble pulling your needle through your fabric, that basically means the needle is too big for the weave of your fabric. And when you force it through, you're making more holes. If the thread is in those holes, it's pretty sturdy, but if it's hard to pull through, then you can switch, try something else. Embroidery needles, again, have a big eye. They'll be pretty easy to thread, and they'll hold the Sashiko thread just as well. And just a note on sizing, with embroidery needles, the higher the number, the smaller the needle. So a size 10 needle is very small. A size 1 needle is very big. A size 1 is probably bigger than most Sashiko needles. So I would say if you like to have a bigger eye to thread, try a size 5 embroidery needle. That's a sort of good compromise. It's a sort of medium-sized needle, but it's going to be smaller than Sashiko. And you can also check before you even thread. You can just sort of take your needle and try and pull it through your fabric. If it doesn't go through easily, then it's definitely going to not be easy when you have it threaded too. So smaller needle. If it's hard to get through, smaller needle. Usually any amount of thread that will fit through your needle will fit through your fabric. So sometimes I know that people will try like a thinner thread with the same size needle and have the same problem. Size down. So that's a good thing. It's nice to have a good selection of needles, because then you can check when you start, or you can switch midway. If you've got it threaded with Sashiko, you could probably unthread the needle, rethread a smaller needle, and keep going. So just if your needle is having a hard time pulling through, it just means the needle is bigger than the weave of the fabric. So if you switch to a smaller size needle, it's going to be a lot easier. I'm going to finish up just stitching this little one, and then I wanted to show you one more repair that actually is a visible mend, or start doing a visible mend, just to give you a little bit more. I'm going to throw that Pinterest link up again. So if you're interested in looking at some good examples of really fun visible mending, this link to one of our Pinterest boards about different visible mends that we've pulled from all over the internet. We did not do all of those. We just like them very much. They're fun and inspiring. It's fun to just decide that you're going to make your clothes unique to you with mends that nobody else has. All right, so I've finished 2 lines of stitching. I'm going to do a close-up again real quick just to show you they don't have to be super, super close together. All the little small stitches here, the tiny stitches here, that's what's holding on your fabric. That's what's holding it in place and also holding it flat, like it's going to help it not to bunch and stuff. So little stitches there, but they don't have to be too many lines. I'm probably going to end up saying I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll probably have 11 rows of stitching when I'm done, and that's going to be a lot of stitches. That's plenty to hold it all together. And I think that'll be fairly discreet for a patch on the inside leg. So that's fun. And I'll actually be able to keep wearing these jeans. I don't know if you're like me, there's like a place on your jeans that always wears out. I feel it's different for everybody, but on me, like no matter what pair of jeans it is, no matter what they're made of, doesn't matter if they're skinny jeans or loose fit or whatever, like it's always the same place, which means that I should like keep an eye on that more often and fix it before it breaks. But you know, I don't do that. Okay. Oh, there's something on my table I forgot to tell you about. So one more useful tool in mending is fusible interfacing. So this right here is a woven fusible interfacing. So it's not stretchy, but it is a woven fabric. It's pretty lightweight and it's got a gummy glue on it. If you have got something, so like this could actually be good for a t-shirt. It's pretty lightweight, and if you wanted to, you basically like would iron it on behind your t-shirt to give it a little more stability, and then you can stitch through it. Especially this woven interfacing is pretty easy to stitch through. There are other interfacings that are called non-woven. They tend to be a little bit harder to stitch through. It's still possible, but the woven's a little bit easier. So you can put that behind any repair. I could have done it behind those jeans too to give it just a little extra oomph, but I did a whole denim patch, which is pretty oomphy. But if you are doing a more delicate repair on a more delicate fabric, a little bit of interfacing can help hold things together. And then you still want to do decorative stitching on top. If you just put an interface patch behind it, it's going to show up and it'll look like a fix, but not in a fun way. And so, you know, make it fun. So fusible interfacing, woven or non-woven works. Lightweight is best. If you're doing a heavier repair, then just do a heavy fabric patch. But this is good for some lighter weight things. All right, the last thing I wanted to show you in a few minutes. So, you know, it's COVID time, it's quarantine time. I've been wearing a lot of sweatshirts. This is me dressed up today for you. But I'm wearing a lot of sweatshirts, and the other day I noticed that one of my go-to sweatshirts, which is just a plain black sweatshirt, had a little hole in it. I think that is from me trying to carry too many things into my house. So it's got this little teeny bitty baby hole. I'm kind of poking my finger through it. So this is a hole that's small enough that I could let it go for a while, but you know, the timing was good for mending class. So I'll show you one last thing. An embroidery hoop can be helpful when you're mending something that's big. Like the leg of my jeans is a, you know, smaller surface, but this is a whole big floppy sweatshirt. So the embroidery hoop's going to do two things for me. One, it's going to help me not lose my place. It's going to say, hey, this is exactly where the hole is. And it's also going to stabilize my fabric a little bit while I stitch. And this is, so I have looked at where this is. This is sort of like just above the pocket. So it's kind of like side of my torso there. And I could stitch it in black and nobody would ever see it, but what fun would that be? Oh, I'm going to move this over. I'm having trouble getting it over the pocket, but I don't need to put it there. I can put it elsewhere. So I thought about it, and I'm going to use our bright green sashiko thread, and maybe I'll make it a little flower. I'm going to make it a little decorative. I have a feeling that this sweatshirt is going to get many more holes in it. It is not a high quality sweatshirt, but it's very cozy. So I figure I'll start now. I'll stitch something on it that I like. And then as I add repairs, it'll just become more and more beautiful. So I'm going to start that up, and we're kind of wrapping up now. I mean, I'll keep talking for a while, but it's been an hour, so you guys probably have other wonderful Saturday things you want to do. But if you have final questions, go ahead and put them in the comments there. I will also come back in a couple days. If there's extra comments, I'll answer those. And I will put this video. So this video lives on Facebook, but I'm also going to put it on YouTube because I do not know how long Facebook keeps up these live video feeds. Maybe forever. I don't know. But it will also go on YouTube, and we'll make a little playlist of all of our virtual mending sessions there. And let's see. My sashiko needle is still in my pants. So I'm going to show you a little technique really quick, which is a weaving technique. And this is fun for covering holes. It's nice for when you're repairing a stretchy fabric because it has a little bit of give to it as well. So I've got my hoop. I've got my little hole right there. I'm gonna start from the inside this time because this sweatshirt doesn't sit close to my body, so I'm not worried about that little knot of thread bothering me. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a weaving. And when you weave something, you need to have a place for your threads to sit. So if you weave, or if you've heard about weaving, there's a warp and a weft. So the warp is basically all your vertical threads that hold the rest in place. So what I'm doing here is I'm stitching some long straight stitches over that hole. And I'm giving it a pretty wide berth. I'm probably like a 1/4 inch above and below the hole because I know that where the hole is a place where the fabric is less sturdy. So again, I want to sort of go to the outer edge of that and make sure that I'm landing my needle in a place where the fabric is not just about to unravel. I'm just going to do 4 stitches here because this is a pretty small hole. All right, so I've got my 4 vertical stitches. You can see those there. Whoop. Now I'm going to come in on the side here. And this is going to be sort of like a hashtag plus extra. So I've come up to the side of this stitch. I'm going to go over that one, under this one, over and under. So I'm weaving my thread through there. And now, normally when you're weaving, you would just go back the other way, but I want to make sure this is strong. So I'm anchoring. So at the end of this stitch that I just wove through, oh man, when it's this close to the camera, you can see how many pills are on this sweatshirt. So I'm anchoring that stitch down to the back of the fabric, and then I'm going to come up again next to it. And I'm going to go over this first thread, under the next, over and under. So weaving through. And then I'm going to anchor that thread right there. Same thing. So this is going to give me a little sort of like woven grid, tic-tac-toe, hashtaggy type of design on here, which I can leave it as it is, or I could incorporate it into something else. Like it could be the middle of a flower. It could be one eye of a robot, whatever I want it to be. It will probably be a green grid for a while until I get more holes in this sweatshirt and come back to fix it again. And this is pretty, so right now this is a pretty wide weave. I've got a lot of space between my threads. If you want a tighter weave, just give yourself more threads. So you would do more of your initial warp threads and then just more of your weft. So what I'm doing now is the weft. If I'm saying that wrong, don't tell me. So that little basic repair is going to give enough heft to my fabric that that hole isn't going to spread much. Same thing as like when I wash it. You know, when you wash the hole, it's going to get bigger. But this should sort of help things to not get worse. And it's a start. And maybe this sweatshirt is going to be my stitchiest, most repaired sweatshirt. We'll see how long quarantine lasts. All right, so guys, thank you for joining me. If you have any other questions, let me know. I haven't seen comments in a while, so I'm hoping that means that you're all satisfied and don't need to ask me anything else. But if you do have questions, again, I'm going to post this on YouTube. You can put questions in the YouTube comments as well. Thank you, Robin. Oh, good. Yeah, the woven patch is really fun, and you can see some more examples of that in that Pinterest thing where to go. I'm just gonna put up all my banners. All my banners are here. Haha. Yes. So yeah, thank you. Thank you everybody for watching. Thanks for tuning in. We are working on the schedule for more craft alongs. We have a lot of ideas. Right now we had to order some supplies and they're taking a long time to get here. But once we've got that solid, we will share those too. Probably every couple of weeks we'll do one. We're gonna do like a macrame hoop weaving thing. Taylor, my business partner, has been talking about a kokedama class, which is a really cool sort of like planting craft. Probably some pom-poms because I love pom-poms. So yeah, as long as this goes on, we are gonna keep beaming the crafts out to you. And I hope that this is a thing that helps you cope with whatever you're coping with. But you know what? If coping is also going to bed for a long time, hey, do that. I don't know if that's the best advice to end on, but I hope that whatever you're doing to help yourself is working. And I wish you the best, and wish you busy, crafty hands and lots of mending. Okay, I think I'm going to stop talking now. Bye.